Hello, and welcome to Vital Concerns. Thanks for watching today. My name is Bob Joyce, and I'm the host today, taking the place of Connie Murphy. And I'm very happy to have as our guest today Representative James Lyons, who is a state representative from the 18th Essex District. Jim, welcome to the show, to Vital Concerns.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we begin, I'd like to take a chance to read the Massachusetts Citizens for Life mission statement. We are a representative, a chapter of Massachusetts Citizens for Life. It's the Margaret O'Hara chapter, the West Roxbury-Rosendale chapter, and this is what Massachusetts Citizens for Life is all about. In recognition of the fact that each human life is a continuum from conception to natural death, the mission of Massachusetts Citizens for Life is to promote respect for human life and to defend the right to life of all human beings, born and preborn. We will influence public policy at the local, state, and national levels through comprehensive educational, legislative, and charitable activities. And all of our efforts are peaceful, Jim, as you know. Jim, this is your first term as state representative, and you represent the 18th Essex District. Can you tell us a little bit about the district?
Sure. I live up in Andover. The district includes precincts in Andover, North Andover, Georgetown, Boxford, Haverhill, and Methuen. And I got elected in November. I defeated a long-term incumbent and have really enjoyed my first 6 months in the state legislature.
Now that's a pretty diverse district.
It is.
And I understand that this is the first public office that you've held, and that your business is primarily in, and then that your background is primarily in business. Can you tell us a little bit about your business and why in the world did you decide to run for state representative?
I've been in the flower business, Bob, for about 35 years. I started back in 1975 or 76. I actually borrowed $50 off my mother to sell flowers on a street corner, and we grew the business from there and have several stores right now. And one of the primary reasons I got into the race was because of the impact I saw happening to small businesses and taxpayers in Massachusetts, and believed that, we needed a new perspective on Beacon Hill, a perspective that understood, what working families and struggling business were going through. And I felt that voice was not being heard on Beacon Hill. In addition to that, there are social issues that I am really concerned about. Certainly the pro-life issue is right up there at the top of that list, and that also motivated me to get into this particular race, and we were fortunate enough to win.
Well, that's great. That's really quite a business success story, starting off with $50 and building the business that you have now, so I take my hat off to you in that regard. I checked out what your committee assignments are, and I think that your business background would certainly be helpful in that work. I see that you're on the Joint Committee for Community Development and Small Businesses and Housing and State Administration and Regulatory Oversight. Sounds like a lot of work.
It is, yeah.
But I wonder, are there any assignments that you have, or any positions that you hold, which tie more directly into pro-life and pro-family issues?
Yeah, we just started a pro-family caucus in the state legislature, and we have, I think it's 20 members now who are, one of the concerns and focuses of this caucus is the pro-family movement in Massachusetts, to try to put forward a vision of what we think is important in Massachusetts, and how our tax dollars should be spent, and what kind of legislations should be passed on Beacon Hill. And we have a meeting, as a matter of fact, coming up next week. We meet every quarter, and as I said, we've got 20 members right now, and we really believe that this is an opportunity for us to talk about pro-family issues as a group, and it's something that I'm looking forward to working on, and something that I think can have a positive impact in our state.
Now, this sounds like a coalition of people with a similar interest: pro-family, pro-life.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's
and
not
is
only
this the first time that we've had this?
I think in recent memory there hasn't been any caucus up on Beacon Hill, and the good thing about it is not only is it a coalition, it's also bipartisan. We have both Democrats and Republicans that are part of our caucus, and are committed to to really speak up for the families of Massachusetts.
Well, knowing you as well as I do, I know that you speak up, but you also speak with people. You're a person who listens, and you have real life debates and respectful dialogue, which I think is a key to any progress in any area, but certainly in progress among the social issues.
One of the things that happened, which was a very successful thing that we did early in the session, was Maria Talks is a website that's funded by the Department of Public Health, and we were successful in getting 63 legislators to sign a letter to the governor and ask that the website be either substantially changed or taken down. And to get 63 people in the legislature to agree on something is no easy task, but there was a lot of discussion among a lot of people that the Department of Public Health had gone too far. And to date, we've made some changes to the website, and we're continuing to press the commissioner of the Department of Public Health to make further changes. And hopefully, there are some, and I'm one of them, that think it should come down. Our tax dollars should not be spent in the fashion that this website is promoting.
And what was some of the content and/or some of the things that you objected to concerning the Maria Talks website?
Well, one of the major problems with the website is that it basically is interfering with parental rights. Just on the issue of abortion, for example, it encourages young people to go around their parents and actually to use a judge to get permission to have an abortion. I mean, an issue as sensitive as that, we should be encouraging parental involvement in discussions among a young woman and her parents. And we shouldn't be having tax dollars promoting that type of interference. And the language, quite frankly, Bob, that was on this website was language that we couldn't even use in the House of Representatives. If we were to use the language and try to say what was on that website in the well of the House, we would be asked not to speak. So it's almost unconscionable that we're using our tax dollars to teach our children with language that we can't even use in the House of Representatives. There was so many different things that were on that website that interfered with parental rights. And to the commissioner's credit, he has made some changes, but he has not gone anywhere near as far as he should.
I read one report after the changes came out. I read one comment that said, and I'll read this, it said, "But while the vulgarities are gone, the anti-family message still remains. The website still counsels minors on how to obtain abortions without parental consent, dismisses abstinence, and encourages youth to engage in sexual activity." Is that basically what you see after having seen the changes?
Yes, there's no question that they have not gone far enough. I mean, the debate about abstinence, we had a discussion with Mr. Auerbach, and the document itself is about this thick. And I asked him specifically the question about abstinence. There is one half paragraph in the entire document that addresses abstinence. I mean, if we're going to be fair, we should at least be fair on the issue of sex education, and it should be a two-sided argument as opposed to an argument that's being promoted basically by Planned Parenthood.
Having lived the number of years that we've lived, and I've lived more than you have, and having gone through adolescence and early adulthood, you know that you experience that there's a relationship between sexual activity and love, but you also understand that sometimes it's pretty easy to confuse those two. And I think that in the culture that we're in, where through media and Hollywood and all, we see that there seems to be a division between love and sexual activity, because there's Hollywood-style love and there's non-Hollywood style love. And it sounds like with some of the objections to the Maria Talks website is that there's not a sufficient focus on true human love.
I just think about what we're doing is we're talking to children between the ages of 10 and up to 19, but let's just focus on the 10 to 16.
You better never call a 17 or 18-year-old a child. No, I know what you mean, adolescents.
Exactly.
Children and adolescents.
And we shouldn't be encouraging them to engage in this kind of activity. And, to use our tax dollars, people's tax dollars, to promote values that are contradictory to a large portion of our society, particularly in this time of very difficult economic downturn. The question is, why are we spending our tax dollars on these kinds of programs at the same time we're cutting back to the handicapped, we're cutting back to the elderly? It seems to me that we should reprioritize how we spend our tax dollars, and we shouldn't be using tax dollars that directly interfere with parental rights.
Good points. Jim, what bills are there up on Beacon Hill now pending that deal with pro-life issues?
Well, one of the bills that I was a sponsor with Representative Lombardo from Bill Ricker is to repeal the buffer zone. As you know, Bob, the buffer zone is a law that's been put in place that restricts free speech on sidewalks in front of abortion facilities. And I was able to testify recently in front of the Judiciary Committee regarding the repeal of the buffer zone. It's one of the only laws in Massachusetts and throughout the United States that discriminates against a certain element of our society, pro-life people. And I was able to testify in front of the judiciary to try to get this bill repealed.
Now, you have a kind of a personal interest or a personal story relating to the buffer zone bill. Would you be willing to tell us that story?
Sure. The day that I left my house to talk about the buffer zone, my wife Bernadette and I had a little conversation. My wife has been a sidewalk counselor for almost 25 years in front of abortion clinics. And I asked her, is there anything specific that you wanted me to talk about? Was there anything special? And she said, yeah, tell them about Sophia. So I said, fine, I'll tell her about Sophia. So I was able to tell the story about this young 19-year-old woman who was walking into the abortion clinic, and I think it was about 18 or 19 years ago, and she had two little ones, one on either side. And that particular day, she happened to run into my wife, and my wife Bernadette spoke to her and convinced her that there were other options for her to pursue. And this young woman took the information and called my wife that night and asked her if she would help her. And my wife Bernadette said she'd be happy to. And what happened was that woman decided to go forward with the pregnancy and actually had a beautiful little girl. And Bernadette and the woman who helped my wife, or sidewalk counsel, who I refer to as the grandmothers, actually helped this young woman through the first 4 or 5 years of Sonia's life, which is the little baby. And 8 years after their first meeting on Christmas Eve, we received a card in the mail, a Christmas card with a picture of what Sophia called the queen of the house. And it was quite moving. And I was able to share that story with the members of the judiciary, because what we're talking about here, if we're truly interested in, freedom of speech, is letting people make their own decisions, not restricting information, which is what this buffer zone law does. And what my wife was pointing out was, by giving that young woman, the leaflet and giving her a phone number, it gave her another option. She ultimately made the decision of what she wanted to do, and what she wanted to do was ultimately to move forward. And it's important that people know that this law that's restricting people's freedom of speech is also interfering with the education and counseling of some people who need some education and counseling at a critical time in their life. And we shouldn't be putting in and allowing laws to stand in the way of free speech.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and a very, very interesting and moving and touching story. I think it's important to recognize the dilemma that many women, young and middle-aged, and many men face when they deal with an unwanted pregnancy. And it would be a mistake to be insensitive to the turmoil and the frustration and the anxieties that they face. But I think that's the time when there's a challenge upon all of us, the whole community, the whole culture, to reach out to that person and to genuinely say there's something that we can do, and we really do care about this. And that's what I was talking about in terms of the true love, not the Hollywood-style love, here today, gone tomorrow, it's your problem, you deal with it, or I'll push you in this way. But that's a story of people who got involved and reached out in a real demonstration of love. It's interesting. Most of married people, well, of course, everyone has at one point proposed to his or her spouse, and I would speculate that there are none or few, if any, people who proposed from 35 feet or more away. And I think that, isn't that what the buffer zone law says, that if you want to talk to someone who's walking in, then you have to be at least 35 feet away? And it's hard to have, most of the time, if people want to make a point motivated by love with somebody, then they want to look them in the eye and they want to have sincere discussion with them. And it's kind of tough to establish that human communication from 35 feet. So what do you think the answer is?
Well, I think, number one, I think what we really have to focus on is, when you say the answer, you were talking about how do we repeal it? And
yes.
I mean, I think we really have to talk about what our Constitution says. We have a right to speech, free speech, and we're not talking about buffer zones on private property. We're talking about buffer zones on public property. And I think the answer is that we need to repeal it and allow people to communicate with one another freely and openly. And I'm not afraid, and I don't think the people that are handing out, my wife certainly isn't afraid, to give her viewpoint to those people, these young women. They're the ones that are ultimately going to make the decision. So what is wrong with giving them information to make a decision? It is critical that people understand we are talking about public sidewalks and restricting only one segment of our society. Just think about the consequences of that if that was to be expanded to other issues. So I think it really is a First Amendment right. I mean, it's critical that we do not restrict people's free speech. And from my perspective, if we can allow people to get information about, the child and what's going to happen, in this instance particularly, you can see how everybody was so much better off. And so I think we just have to continue to educate people, point out these stories, and focus on the fact that people's freedom of speech should not be restricted because we disagree with what those people are trying to promote. And in this case, all they're trying to promote is a pro-life position. We can burn flags in this country, and we don't want to allow people to talk about something as important as life. So
it's a very difficult issue to talk about very frequently, and for men and women alike. Even if there's not an immediacy of a pregnancy or an unwanted pregnancy, there might be something in a history. Many families have been affected, many young women and women have been affected, husbands, wives, mothers, daughters, cousins, all this kind of thing. And I think that there's sometimes a tendency to think that if you speak out in a pro-life way, then you're somehow being disloyal to someone, a friend or a family member or that kind of thing. And I think it's a very great challenge to us to be able to get across that we can advocate for pro-life without being disloyal to anyone whom we love. It's a great challenge, but something that I think we have to, as I say, as we talk about, look people in the eye and have a rational, loving dialogue about it.
I think, to follow up on that, Bob, I think what we have to do is, we have no right to judge anyone. I mean, you, me, my wife, Bernadette, none of us have a right to judge anyone on anything. Our job in this particular case is to hopefully provide information and show people that there is love and support out there for them. And I completely agree with you. I mean, what people do, if in their, the things that have happened in the past, who knows what position those particular individuals were in. I don't think that issue is something that we should even, as a pro-life person, even look back and say, who are we to judge? That's not our role. Our role is to hopefully help and give people information, and then if they need our support moving forward, to help them as best we can. I'm a big believer in always looking forward, not looking backwards, And I think that's a critical point that you make, that, you know, there's suffering out there that people have gone through in their own lives, and it's not up to us as pro-life people to in any way judge anyone. Our goal and our job, I believe, is to promote this positive side of life.
Great. Jim, I'm just getting the 2-minute signal. I can't believe it because we have so many things that we'd like to talk about. I just want to mention one, which is another bill that's pending, which is called Laura's Law, which is alternately known as the Women's Right to Know Bill, which you were talking about providing information. It's my understanding that this would offer information to women who wanted to have it, women and men who wanted to have it. It wouldn't force them to have it, but it would be in order to offer education and to basically to define the choice better. So that's a law that I know you're working on, but we're not going to have too much time to talk about it today.
The one thing that I can talk about quickly, though, Bob, is that the number of sponsors on that bill has doubled in the last couple of years. So there is a groundswell of support, you know, for passing and making sure that people have that information.
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing. It would be a hard thing for a person who recognizes that these are matters involving women's health, and these are matters of women's health, and it's providing education, information, and education. How do you successfully defend and say, no, I want people to be uninformed, and I don't want them to have a choice? So anyway, well, I want to thank you very much for all the work that you do, and congratulations on your election. And I know you're a very busy man, and it's nice of you to take time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with our viewers. And
thank you very much, Bob, for having me. I really
and I'd like to
appreciate
thank all of the viewers. I'd like you to think about ways that you can be involved. You can get involved with Mass Citizens for Life. You can talk with your neighbors. You can call up Jim Lyons. Jim would be happy to have you come into the State House, and he could show you around there. So it's awfully nice to spend some time with you. Thank you very much, and you have a great day.